Hello, everyone. Thank you for everyone for joining this webinar today on FireMon. And Trace team would like to appreciate your time and also your participation, where Mr. Prakash Mishra is the sole speaker of this webinar, and he'll cover regarding the essentials of firewall management practices for the multiple brands and also the multiple branches in the usage cases, and how to avoid the misconfigurations and to stay ahead with the PCI DSS 4.0 compliance. So I would like to head over to Mr. Prakash. Hi, Mr. Prakash. Would you like to take this forward?
Hi everyone. So this is Prakash here, and I take care of India and ANZ as a region. And I've been working with FireMon for last 2 years. And from FireMon, we do have EJ with us. So she is the account executive for us, and she has joined the call as well. I could see. Hi, EJ. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the introduction, team. So I do understand, I see the agenda, what we have been setting through, and we do want to discuss, on the ongoing firewall management challenges that you have been facing, and, all the, I would say, nitty-gritties which we get into day-to-day lives, because of these management issues. Let's discuss on few of the pointers, and I want this interaction to be more and more interactive. If any questions are there, please feel free to, raise your hand and ask me the questions on the go. I'll be more than happy to take it. So just a minute, let me just begin. Yeah, great. So my screen is visible, right, Shavya? You can see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Right. So
Yes, it's
let's
visible.
yeah, cool. Cool. Thanks for the confirmation, guys. Right. So let's talk about let's before moving into the technology or what Firemon does or how it would help you out. Let's talk about few things out here. Few things as in we like to keep things simple, right? So whenever we get into any kind of configuration, like we try to keep a secure default or whatever the setting comes in, we try to keep it as it is. So we believe in keeping things simple, but the problem is this simple things that leads to a big problem, and it is not an immediate effect that you would see, right? It is something which is more or more incremental, and at the end of a big, I would say, end of a big tenure, you would see something big coming up, which could be a monetary loss, or which could be a loss in availability, or maybe a confidentiality problem. All these things can strike in. So, a few examples, if you ask me, there was this attack, there was this breach, I would say, which happened. There was this problem coming with Outlook, if you all remember, in January. And it happened such that the Outlook was getting rebooted, and there were some issues happening in from Microsoft. Later, we got to know they just wanted to, it was a small IP which they wanted to add to their external BGP router, and that did not go well. So that led to a massive issue for around 5 or 6 hours. So that was something which was unpredictable, and many such things like in Imperva, you could see there was a small misconfiguration on AWS which has happened, because of maybe there was a port which was not being used, it was open, and because of that, there were certain API keys which were, quite public, in that case. So that was stolen, and that compromised quite a few number of customer records, so that was quite an attack. It was a small attack, but Imperva being such a huge company, they had to go through even they had to go through all this stuff. Then, if you know about the Capital One attack, where there were, I mean, hundred of million records which were lost, it was mostly because of our cross-site forgery which has taken place. So all these are minuscule things. When we configure our device or when we do any kind of configuration, we think that we are at our best, but there has to be certain checks. We would be discussing and how to prevent those. That also we'll be talking about. Then there was this AWS misconfiguration happened, because of which 3.5 TB data flew out. And lastly, Aadhaar card, we all know about it. Recently, we got a news in November, right? there was this data for around 80 million people, which was public on, dark web. So those kind of things are something I wouldn't say we will be 100% sure that we will be taking care and we will be mitigating all the risk. But at least the problem is we should bring down the risk to a level where it is acceptable for a company, right? We cannot 100% eradicate stuff, that is for sure. Our job is to bring it down to a level where the business is not taking an impact at all. That should be something which we'll be looking out for. And in all these attacks, in all these previous use cases that we have seen, do you think that most of these were sophisticated attacks, or maybe it was a planned attack where there was a CNC connection or many things happening? No, not at all. It was something, maybe in some cases there was an insider threat which has happened. In some cases, maybe there is a port which was kept open, maybe not being used from a long time. Unserviced port was there, which was taken. That was the advantage which was taken off. And in some cases, if you see, there were mostly it was of a configuration part where we had to face the problem, because of which there was this, downtimes happening in. So from our side, if you see things, we being the protector of our company, we being the first line of defense, we should be right all the time. But if the attacker is right just for once, it's done. They are through to our network, and then whatever compromises are to be done, that is done. So it is very, very important, for us to continuously keep a track of our current environment, how things are moving, to continuously keep a audit, continuously monitor stuffs. All these things will lead into a, I would say, not a perfect security posture it will form, but I would say at least it will give you the confidence that, okay, you are at a safe place. Things won't be blasting out a lot, when something goes wrong. And what kind of mistakes, right? Human mistakes are something which is quite unavoidable, like how much we train, how much awareness program we get into. But we are bound to make mistakes. We are human beings. So if there is some patches which are not being there for any kind of software, like just now we saw the case of CrowdStrike happening in, right? It was a small human mistake, because of which a lot of I would say verticals suffered a lot. Maybe the airport and many other verticals came into play. If there is any kind of misconfiguration happening, and all these things are small, but this can lead to a big impact, altogether. And also, Gartner has stated earlier that around 99% of the breaches will be caused by misconfigurations, not firewalls, right? Because firewalls are something you're placing two different firewalls. One will be at perimeter, then people are choosing a different set of firewall to have different IOCs. But the problem is when we are placing the firewall, how are we configuring it? Because at times, the most, I would say, dangerous thing that I have come across things are the secure default. Whenever any kind of I would say inventory, be it firewall, your WAF, or any tool that you are placing in the inventory in the environment, you try to keep things simple by just getting through the default settings of those particular inventory. That is something we have to be very, very watchful about, and how good it is for your company. We have to do a proper, I would say, scoping and a proper tailoring out here, right? And we have to make the policies or make the rules as per your company, as per your standards. That is something which we should keep in mind, and that is something which we have to take a good control over. Right. Then moving on, the basics are simple. That's what we wanted to say. Basics, it's not difficult to patch one system anytime. If there may be a patch management solution for you guys where you would be patching up the systems, you would be having a test bed, you would be doing the testing, post which you would be doing the patching. But what if when the number increases to 10,000s or 100,000 of computer with different configurations altogether, that has to be something which has to be looked out for, because manually things are becoming very, very cumbersome. And a single human error, as we discussed, if there is a single gap from us, and that could be a point of entry, that could be a backdoor entry for many of these attackers who are ready, who are waiting for, who are hungry to get into our systems and get the things done. And definitely changing one firewall rule. I know, like most of you are working with the firewall part. So it's not at all difficult, I would say. It's like hardly some matter of minutes or matter of seconds. But what if there are multi-tier firewall, what if there are different vendors? What if there is a different zonal firewalls placed, or geographically they are placed in a different zones? So that does not make things easy for us. We have to be very careful when we are making any kind of changes. Like we saw in Microsoft, there was a small rule which was to be added to a BGP router, but that did not go well. Hence, the Outlook had to go through so much of trouble. So whenever we are doing any kind of changes out here, it is like very important for us to keep a check, like how that change would react, what kind of failures or what kind of vulnerabilities it will get us into, and we have to keep in mind all those things. And humanly, if you ask me, it's very difficult because you can't evaluate all of this in a fraction of maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or a shorter duration, right? So now, if you see the screen, what we wanted to discuss more and more is about the complexity, right? So when we are discussing about complexity, say if there are very few devices, it's quite simple. The topology is so clear. We know, okay, traffic is moving from say here to here. It's easy whenever there is any kind of miscommunication happening in, or if there is any kind of traffic denial, then we can easily backtrack it and we can get to the rule that is exactly stopping the policy or stopping the traffic for you. What about this? Still okay, I would say. It's like okay, it'll need some kind of efforts, but definitely not impossible. Still, it's fine. The routing is there, things are there, but you can backtrack it, you can find it. Now, what about this? You have to keep the business running. You have so many users in place, right? They will be coming to you. They'll be saying, I'm not able to access a particular application. Then, out of so many firewalls of different vendors, I would say, like you're using a Palo Alto, Cisco, maybe FortiGate, for you to check each and every firewall or maybe their management stations and check where exactly you're getting the logs for this kind of audit trail, where exactly the user is not going to get through. Very, very difficult. In that case, it will take some hours for you to get through it and get the thing sorted. Now, what about this? This is what we are dealing with nowadays. We are dealing with there are connections which are quite overloaded. This looks like a web altogether. Manually going through it and finding or doing a RCA, it's quite impossible, I would say. From my naked eyes, I'm not able to even visualize like how many inventories are currently there in this topology, right? So it is absolutely, I would say, impossible to go through all these things manually. So what we are trying to say is let's do a calculation out here. So if there is I would say let's take a moderate industry who are using maybe around 300 firewalls, and each firewall definitely has more than 300 rules. We have taken this just for easy calculation, I would say, but it would be more than 300 rules which they would be implying, and each rule would have more than, I would say, nine different parameters, including source objects, destination objects, and maybe the services. So that all together leads to 80, if you see 1.4 billion connection. So believe me, managing 1.4 billion connection in a disintegrated way is absolutely not possible. And it is fatal, to some extent it is fatal, because there would be some parameters in your company, there would be some parameters in your network which are absolutely not acceptable. Given an example, you tell me, okay, in my organization, there are certain ports which are not to be used by any one, maybe it is external or internal traffic flowing in, that ports are strictly banned. So how would you, you know, get into those kind of calculations or those kind of, I would say, auditing out of 1.4 billion connection? It's humanly, I don't think it's that easy, I would say. Maybe if there is a supercomputer, maybe that could have been done, but otherwise it's not at all easy. Trust me on that. So that is something which I wanted to say. Things that look simple are very complex. If I see your network, it may be a simple thing, but actually the guys who are managing it, they know the pain of it. They know their daily challenges which they are going through, and I'm very sure they must be looking out for something which would ease their work and which would give you more consistency. Just a sec. Right. So what we want to say is, look, scalability would not be a solution always, right? How much training you give to your employees or how much awareness you give, they are bound to fall victim to some or other kind of attacks someday, right? And that would lead to some kind of security breach happening in. Then time is also something which is very important. You don't get those kind of resources. Say, for example, you have a uh, distributed environment of multi-branch of firewall. You have Cisco, FortiGate, Palo Alto. It's very difficult to find people who are expertise in all three. They know firewall, they know the concept, but knowing Palo Alto is different, Cisco is different, FortiGate and multi-branch is different, right? So it is very difficult to find those people who had skill set to manage all these sets of firewall, right? Then there are SLAs which we have to deal into, right? So if there is any kind of downtime which is happening in, then there are SLAs. If it is not being followed, the business is not going to wait for us, right? The business is like, okay, you are there to support business, right? We are security guys. Our job to help the business establish and business grow without much ado or without much trouble, right? So business won't wait for it. So that is something which we have to take care of, and it is nearly, I would say it's not absolutely, but it is nearly impossible to ensure 100% compliance, because there are risk of potential fine when we are discussing about PCI. So PCI has multiple norms, right? PCI has rules like if there is any rule which is not used from 60 days, from 90 days, or from 180 days, those have to be monitored, and if there are any source and destination being any, that has to be taken care of. So doing that for so many assets, maybe more than 10, 15, 100 or 50, whatever assets you have, doing those things for those assets, it's completely difficult, very, very difficult if you want to do it manually, and that too for different brands of firewall, right? So what we try to say is let's do it in a different way, right? Let's try to rethink, and let's try to bring simplicity to our own terms, right? What simple means for others, we may be taking it maybe a step down, and we would be getting more out of it, right? Like for example, let's assess the things. Let's assess like what is exactly getting us into that space, right? What is exactly getting us into those misconfigurations? Why maybe the misconfigurations are happening in taking that, for example, then we need to understand those and we need to prioritize those points, So identifying the risk is quite important in this case. So that is something which we have to assess for. Then we have to build consistency. The reason being documentation is something that is going to stay with us forever, right? So whatever policy you are building or whatever I would say assets you are onboarding, we need documents for those. So later on, maybe after some years, after a few months, when you want to redo things, you have a document ready with you. So you just can follow that and get the things done. Right. And we need to reframe the approach. In all this, whatever we saw is whenever there is any kind of manual intervention happening in that itself is a challenge for us, right? So we need to reframe those that approach altogether, and we would try to bring in some kind of automations, right? Because that is something which will help us in getting things done in a faster way for sure, and that is something which will make us in giving a proper accountability. That will help us with giving a proper, I would say, baselining, right? So let's believe in that. Let's try to get into automation so that decreasing manual efforts definitely means, and increasing automation means achieving towards a more stricter, I would say, policy, towards a stricter frameworks and giving you a better result, all for sure. Right. So FireMon is definitely an expert because FireMon is something I would like to just pitch in here. FireMon is a tool who is quite old, right? In 2001, Mr. Jody Brazil is someone who invented this technology altogether, what we call as NSPM nowadays, where you are finding multiple players coming in, right? So he is the one who invented this technology. So FireMon was invented by Mr. Jody Brazil, and in 2004 it was established into a full-blown company altogether by the name of FireMon. And since then we have been doing good. We have been progressive. We have been more into attaining things what the customer needs and trying to get the pain areas sorted. That is what FireMon believes in. So reliably automate the simple. That is what we believe in, right? The automation, like if you see automation is a word which is like a which is a buzzing stuff altogether. Everywhere, wherever you go, you would be just listening to this word altogether. But the important thing is when I told you, secure defaults are very important. So whenever you are onboarding anything, even those are automated by default, right? But how secure it is, that is something which we have to take into play. So when we are automating things, that does not mean things are perfect, right? It is on us. We have to be very vigilant. We have to be watchful on how things are getting automated and how easily they are deployable. If things are automated, does not mean the deployment will be tough, right? The deployment should be easy, and the value for money, the operation teams that you are getting into, it should be easy for them to understand and get into the day-to-day operations, right? So that is something FireMon definitely does for you. So we believe in automating the firewall security policy managements. Then we have a module for cloud configuration monitoring, right? It is very, very reliable, very, I would say, relatable to the CSPM part of us. And then there is a network discovery and identification tool with us, So all these things, when we are talking about all this technology we are talking about, we believe in getting through it, getting a proper understanding of your network, and then onboarding stuff. We are there to help you out and get the things automated, so that day in day out you do not need to sit across all these things and maybe generate multiple, I would say, tickets for the same stuff again and again, and get. We just want to move you over this hustle, day-to-day hustle, and get the things simple and get the things more easy for you. So, just a bit about firewall security management policies. When we talk about it, firewall, there are firewalls from multiple vendors. So this is one of our use cases where we have been shining through a lot. Like there have been firewalls from multiple vendors coming in. Maybe 1,000 devices with different vendors. Managing them is very, very difficult. Then the best part is compliance, right? So when we talk about compliance, it is a mandate, I would say, to get those things in a continuous monitoring form. Say, if I'm doing a PCI compliance for you, if I do it just once or quarterly, that won't help me because tomorrow I don't know how my system will be behaving, how my inventory, how my infrastructure will be reacting, right? So it is very, very important to get through a continuous effort altogether where maybe there are PCI compliances, there are HIPAA, there are SOC, ISO, NUCSHIP. All these compliances are something which we can help you with, and we can monitor those assets in a continuous form so that tomorrow if you have an audit coming up, we will be audit ready. So if the auditor comes in and he asks us for a report, well, okay sir, take the report, it is almost there, it's ready, and there is no red ticks out here, it's all green, right? So that reduces half of our job, half of our task, and definitely stress as well, So that is something which FireMon is very good at. We have some brilliant, I would say, compliance and assessment reports with us, which includes PCI, which includes HIPAA, which includes SOC, NUC, SIP, and ISO. All these will be there. And these are all inbuilt, right? We do not need to create anything in a customized way altogether, right? So, and another good part is when we are talking about thousands of firewall coming into play, right? So here, if you see there are 1,000 different brands of firewall, I do not need to go to each and every pane and open it and see how that firewall is reacting right now. What are the rules set? And if I want to push anything for Palo Alto, I'll open a Panorama, do it. FortiGate, FortiManager, I'll do it. No, FireMon can incorporate all of them into a single pane of glass. FireMon has a big heart, so it can incorporate all of this. We do not need different consoles or different, I would say, management stations where you need to view and then take the action because it is very difficult for us to do that. So FireMon will help you out. FireMon will ingest all this firewall into a single pane of glass. They will normalize the stuff for you and they will give it to you in a single frame. So you do not need to be worrying about. So when we spoke about shortage of skilled resource, right? So there are resources who are good in Cisco. There are someone who is good in FortiGate, but we cannot miss out on those good resources just because they don't know few brands, right? So that is where FireMon will come into play. When you are incorporating all this firewall into FireMon, the guy who knows networking very well, he just needs to understand the language of FireMon. That's it. From here, he can manage the firewall, push the policies, do the automation part, the creation, everything can be done from here. Okay, so how will that help is it will help in reduction in time for making policy changes, because when we are trying to create any kind of policy, then it is very difficult to understand what will be the impact. So if there are 15 firewalls, do we need to push the policy to all of them? Or if not, then what are the firewall which actually requires those policies, right? That is something which we have to take into account. Second is, if we are making the policy, what should be the placement of those policies? Third, if we are making the policy and if we are abiding to PCI, then what are the PCI controls that are failing because of this policy? All this assessment has to be done, right, by someone. So FireMon will do that for you. We do have that automation capability where FireMon will help you in understanding all these things, and it will give you a clearer dashboard where it will tell you about these failures, what will be the impact of the device, how critical the device will get into if it is moving from zone A to zone B, how critically it will be, and all those things, all those parameters we will help you with. So it will help you in taking a decision quicker and a documented decision, I would say, and a better decision. So when you are approving any policy, you know what are the risks you are carrying through when you are trying to get into that policy, or when you are denying it, you have a proper business justification. Okay, these are the stuffs, these are the reason why we want to exactly not go ahead and get through that particular policy of ours. Right, so that is something which we can do. Plus, if there is any kind of network, where a user comes to you, he's telling you, I'm not able to access a particular application. It's very difficult. How would you go? Would you go and check each and every firewall logs, checking where exactly the user is getting denied, which policy is getting the user to the denied phase? No, it's not that. It's not a way to do it, right? In the world of automation, you're going to each and every firewall, checking it. It's a time kill, right? So our job is to save time, because time is money, definitely. So here what we can do is we do have options here where we can directly input the details of source destination and get to know which firewall is exactly blocking it. Even if it is a 10 tier architecture, not a problem. We'll get to know about the firewalls, we'll get to know about the policies, and we'll get to know what is exactly blocking it. And then it's our call. If you want to allow it, we can allow it. We can take the actions. Right, so that is how we will be coming into play. We'll be assessing your baselines. We'll be assessing, right. So when you are incorporating the firewall, it is very important. Like we have seen, because of some unpatched errors, there were so many misconfigurations, so many breaches happening in. So it is very important to assess the baselines, right? So we do have reports for that as well. We do have CIS benchmarking, where you can assess your firewalls based on the CIS, and that will help you in understanding where exactly are the loopholes, where exactly are the gaps, and how you can fix those up, so that you are strengthening your perimeter security altogether. Then moving on, we do have option, as we had discussed, for network device discovery as well and identification. So there are cases where you would see a lot of shadowed IT devices coming into play, right? There are devices which are already there in the network. Someone is bringing in and they're connecting it to the network, but we are not aware of it. So you cannot manage things, what you can't see. That is what we believe in, right? And this is something which is growing rapidly. So it is very important for us to discover all the devices that are connected in our network, be it L2 devices, L3 devices, be it your routers, be it your switches. It is very important for us to know what are these devices which are connected, and it is very important to know the path, so it can detect. So there is a way where it can detect, if there is any leak in the path, all those things can be done using this tool of ours, that is the network discovery tool. And it has detected many of those, and that will help you in giving a better topology, better understanding of your shadowed devices, or how it is placed, so that when you are trying to go end to end, it will help you in understanding, okay, these are the devices which are there in the path altogether. Yeah, and definitely we do believe in integration, So we are API first company where our APIs, whatever APIs are there, it is open for use. So there is no challenge at all when you talk about integration. So we do have some names here, but we are not just limited to these names, right? So these are some of the names where we have been very, very involved in doing the integrations altogether. So FireMon gives you the API, you can ingest it and you can do the integration as and when required with any of the tools, so that's not a challenge at well as all. So you can integrate with your SIM, you can integrate with your source solutions, that is something which we are very easy at doing. The best part is, say, if you are getting into a workflow, you can integrate the same with your ticketing solution as well, the ITSM tools like ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, so that any ticket created there can be straight away pushed to FireMon, and in FireMon you can proceed ahead with the rule creation activity. So we give you all those leverages. So I think that's it from my side, guys. That's it from my side. If any questions, anything, please feel free to ask. Yeah. Okay. Any questions, team? Anything from your side coming up?
Hi, this is Govind Raj from Aparna Enterprises.
Yeah.
FireMon is the
Yes.
application or a device?
So it is a application. Yeah. Right.
Application.
So you just need to install it on a VM, and then we are good to go. It's a I would say hardened OS
Okay.
which we can implement. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. Anything else, team? Uh, so we are open for discussion anytime, right? So Trace has our connects, so we are always there for help, and whatever is required, we are there for it. So it's not a challenge at all. So that's all I would like to say. And anything from the Trace team or Shavya or Satcom team, anything you want to add in, or you want to say something? Yeah, Amrita. Let me see if I can show that to you. Hold on.
मैनेज कर
Just
सकते हैं।
allow. सॉरी, आवाज नहीं है सर आपका, बोलिए। आपका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है जी। जी जी जी, मैनेज हो सकता है, ये सारा मैनेज हो सकता है। Palo Alto, FortiGate, Sophos, Cisco, ये सब मैनेज हो सकता है। प्लस आपका L2 L3 स्विचेस भी होगा, वो भी आप मैनेज कर सकते हो इससे। So I think dashboard someone has asked. Let me try to share it. Right. So this is how the dashboard looks. Yeah.
Sir, I am Narayana.
Yeah, Narayana. Yeah.
Sir, this FireMon helps to monitor local area network also, only for firewalls.
It is for firewall, sir, because we mostly believe misconfiguration happen at perimeter level. So basically, it is for firewall and your network devices, L2 and L3 devices, which we can take care of. Yeah. So this is how the dashboard look. Just a glimpse I would like to show you. Maybe if you want to understand more, we can have separate session with your team, and definitely we can dig deep into it. This is how the dashboard looks for FireMon, where it talks about changes that have been made in past few days, cleanup activity, if there are any redundant rules, shadowed rules, or maybe if there are any unused rules coming into play which you want to take care of, and compliance, maybe in PCI, if you're failing the compliance, it will give you a number and it will tell you about those things. So this is just the overview which I'm sharing. Maybe if you want to understand a bit more, we can have separate sessions also with the Trace team can help us in arranging those for you guys. Okay. Is that fine, Amrita? That's okay. Great. Okay. Okay. So, any other questions? Anyone? Anything else you want to understand about it? Or I would suggest if team, if there are more queries, we can definitely have a session, one-to-one session we can have and understand more about it. One thing, last thing, what I would like to say is, team, if you have any queries, we are free. You can just ping me or you have Trace team with you. You can just speak to them and Trace team would arrange a one-to-one session with any of you. We can have that session and we can understand more of your organization's pain points and understand how FireMon can fit in. And then when we can maybe schedule a demo and get the things rolling, we can do it that way. Cool. Then I think Shravya, we are good to go then. We are good to conclude.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar. And I would like to thank Mr. Prakash for sharing the dashboard and also covered about the Gartner report and all. And I would like to even thank for sharing your use cases regarding the network device discovery and identification with the best solution like intelligent leak path detection. And for the demos and all, I'll just ask Mr. Ravi or our team to arrange the demos if needed. So thank you so much.